Warhammer 40k 8th edition is exactly the same as Warhammer 40k 7th edition, which in turn is exactly the same as Warhammer 40k 6th edition, which itself is exactly the same. Guys, Big Mac Dan School here again today, back once again with another episode of Warhammer 40k. So this episode is it's here to cause some controversy. It's not real controversy, but basically, as you may have guessed from the intro, it's about how Warhammer 40k never really changes. Now, when I say that, obviously I've done videos in previous weeks where saying the new edition of 40k it's amazing, it's so different, it's a lot quicker to play, it's blah 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 blah. But ultimately, the things you need to do to win in 8th edition are no different from those you need to do to win in 7th edition. They're no different, there's tactics that you can port over from one edition to another. The first thing I'm going to talk about is, I think it was on a Fritz 40k video I watched, and he just called it the distraction Carnifex, basically. So it's about drawing fire to one unit. In the game I played recently against Craig from Kiblams, there was a few units that got his attention. He was trying to take out my mobility, so he went for the truck straight away. I also had a Gorkanaut, which it can absorb a lot of firepower. When he turned his attention to the Gorkanaut, I think he eventually got it down to about 8 wounds, and that in itself just shows, I think it was like three rounds of shooting that he did at it, and that in itself shows how difficult that unit is to destroy, and it can put out a lot of damage itself as well. It did a various damage shooting some of his units, and also when it got into combat with his units, it was just ploughing through them. So yeah, the idea of the distraction Carnifex is find a unit within your army that can basically soak up a lot of firepower, and it draws your opponent's attention. A unit that looks scary. It can be a unit that not everybody knows what it does. So they're cautious of it. They might ask you a few questions about it, and then they focus on it because they've never seen one before. You're going to see more commonly now Gorkanauts, Morkanauts, probably Death Dreads as well in an Orc force, and people don't want to have to face them things in combat, so they're going to turn a lot of their shooting attention to it, which then enables you to get other units across the table. Now, there are armies out there that have just got so many guns, not everything's going to be shooting at this so-called distraction Gorkanaut, let's say. So in that case, you have to you basically have to scare your opponent into shooting the things you think can soak up more of the damage, and then that'll enable you to get other things into better positions that you need them in, and things like that. I guess ultimately the aim of this episode of Warhammer 40k is to tell you that it's not about how to win a game of Warhammer 40k. It's about how to win at war. The tactics that you can transfer from game to game. You can transfer some tactics from Age of Sigmar to 40k to War Machine to Warhammer Hordes to various games, Bolt Action, whatever. And it's tactics that you use in a real life situation in a war as well. It's distracting them with one thing whilst the aim of the game is to do another thing that they're not looking at. So if you're looking for a simple way to win, or not a simple way to win necessarily, but a surefire way to win in Warhammer, what you really should be looking for is not how to build your list so that you can win. If we take it back to 7th edition, a lot of problems people had with 7th edition was the ability to build a Death Star unit. Now that ability is not there at the minute in 8th edition. So a Death Star unit, if you don't know, It's basically you take characters from various factions that can ally together. They could all be from the same faction potentially, but more commonly it's from various factions that could ally together. And then you shove them in like one super unit. So that unit can then it can then possibly move a lot faster than other units. It can put out a lot more firepower than other units. It can be any number of things really. More commonly though, it could soak up a lot of damage than other units. So it'd be say there'd be a storm shield in there or something, so it'd be a 3-up invulnerable save. And then there'd be an Iron Hands character in there or something like that, which would give a 3-up feel no pain. And there's various rules that you'd put into that unit from different characters from different factions, that would basically make that unit almost impossible to kill. In the course of 6 or 7 turns, pretty much impossible to kill. You might get lucky with your dice rolls, or the controlling player might get unlucky with their dice rolls and actually take some wounds, and then it puts a chink in the armour. But more often than not, that unit survived the whole battle, and it soaked up so much firepower that you weren't actually able to get anything done. So with the new edition of 40k, you can't really do that at the minute. There's auras of effect, but most auras of effect abilities, they spread out for like 6 inches, most of them, and they only affect characters with a certain faction keyword or units with a certain faction keyword. So Gilliman has certain ones that only affect Ultramarines. So that anything you want to benefit from that effect, it has to have the Ultramarine keyword. Marnius Calgar, I'm sure, will have one that only affects Ultramarines as well. I've not actually got the book to hand to check. But certain Orc characters, Boss Zagstruck for example, he creates a fearless bubble. If there's a unit within 6 inches of him, a unit of Goth Stormboys, so they have to both have the Stormboys keyword and the Goth keyword, then he gives them the benefit of they don't have to take a morale test basically. But then if I've got a Death Skulls guy in there because he's got some other benefit, then that Death Skulls guy can't benefit from the fearless thing that Boss Zagstruck gives the Goth Stormboys. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say in this episode is that a good player will always find a way to win. They may, take a little while to get going in a new edition, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 games, but others will just land on their feet and run. So if you understand how, the more you know about the game, the more prepared you are to take out what you're facing, to avoid certain things that you're facing, and to take advantage of any weaknesses you think your opponent might have. Now, that is knowledge and that's power, and that involves a certain amount of tactics. So it's not about finding the best list you can on the internet and then just putting that in your force, finding the best combinations you can on the internet and putting that into your force, into your list. It's not about that really. If you want to continuously, edition after edition, be able to win in Warhammer 40k or in any other game, you really need to learn how to play the game. It's as simple as that really. Learn how to play the game, not learn how to play the units you control. That's as simple as it is really. It's very tempting to go to the internet and find the best combination of units you can have, and it can be fun as well to do that. I'm not besmirching anyone for going to the internet and finding these Death Star units. It can prove a fun challenge for someone to try and take out that unit. Like I did some theory hammer of rolling dice with grots to see how many grots it would take to take out an Imperial Knight. It would have taken innumerable turns, but it was fun for me. It took me probably about half an hour or something like that in just rolling dice, and it ended up being something like 970 attacks from the grots, or shots from the grots. yeah, so it can be fun. It can be a fun challenge to face a difficult unit. It can be a fun challenge to face a difficult unit. But also, like, if you're facing that unit game after game in a tournament, then that's when it becomes really frustrating, I imagine. I've never played in a tournament, but I imagine that's when it becomes really frustrating, and that's why people didn't really like, or a lot of people didn't like facing Death Stars. For that simple fact that it made the game impossible to win if you were facing a Death Star like that, or not impossible to win, but a lot harder to win and a lot less fun. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Obviously, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek at the start of this video with the intro, with me saying the additions are all the same. The additions have obviously changed. They obviously have. The game wouldn't be quicker to play now if it hadn't changed. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. But a good general will always rise to the top, just like a good bit of cream. So thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll leave it there, and I will see you on the battlefield.